Hello, welcome to the newest episode of the Debate Mates. And today I'm ecstatic to be joined by, I want to make sure I get all the titles. Boys cross country coach, girls soccer coach.
Yep.
Am I missing a lot of other things?
Menchville teacher, Air Force Reserve,
One
grad
of the
school student.
Popular Menchville teachers, Coach Zollicoffer, better known as Coach Z. And to make this video a lot easier, I'm going to just refer to him as Coach Z for the rest of the time.
Perfect.
So, luckily, the finals were extended, or else we would have not much to talk about today.
Yep.
But a lot to talk about, actually, with all that happened. So, there's a lot to talk about. We'll play a little bit of a game. It's called Do You Believe? So, look into your heart.
I love these games.
Get your mind and your body in one so you can really have the best answers to these questions. Do you believe that the doctors are to blame for Kevin Durant's awful injury in Game 5?
Okay, so it's hard for me to look at anything black and white, There's just so many variables, so much information that we don't know. So I know a lot of radio analysts, they've been on fire with the radio about how terrible Golden State is, how bad the doctors are, jeopardizing his career, potential lawsuits that Durant may have because of this incident. And I just think we don't have the access to information for me to make a sound decision on who's to blame, who's not. Like, I feel like he was looked at multiple medical staffs. It wasn't just Golden State, it was his own personal doctors. And the decision at the end is that you are cleared to play under your discretion. They were looking at limiting his minutes. I know when the injury happened, I think he had 11 minutes, 12 minutes of play time on the court, try to make that first power move before it happened. And honestly, I don't think they are to blame, but I can't say that because I just don't know enough.
Right, yeah, there are a lot of different variables. Did the doctors tell Kevin Durant and the Warriors that he was not anywhere near to 100%, which was disclosed yesterday from multiple sources like Bleacher Report and The Score, saying he wasn't near 100%. 2, was Steve Kerr told not to just play him in spurts, like 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, because 12 out of the first 14 minutes after being out for a very long time. And then 3, was Kevin Durant told, hey, you don't need to go if you don't want to, and he said, no, I'm going to go. Did he come into all the pressure from the media and apparently his teammates who were questioning his loyalty to the team?
Yeah.
So really, you can't really know until one of them comes out and says, it was my fault. Bob Myers, the basketball president of operations at Golden State, said, if you want to blame it on anybody, blame it on me.
Yep.
I don't see how he could be to blame when you have those other 3 parties that I just mentioned.
Yeah,
but,
sorry. Just to say, I think as a coach, I think Bob Myers is so emotional because that is the worst possible outcome you can hope for.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a Golden State fan, and the whole entire time I'm like, survive. Let's get Kevin Durant back. He will be the difference maker in this series, and I really want him to play. And I'm sure the ownership, the coach, and his teammates wanted the same thing for him. And maybe in the back of his mind, he's trying to push him to know. Everyone knows you're not 100%.
Right.
Klay Thompson's not 100%. Iguodala's not 100%. Probably every starter in that series at this point in the season with all the minutes, the playoffs, is not 100%. So you want them to go to give your team a better shot. But when something like that happens, you just kind of reflect and think, oh, man, at what cost? What is it worth,
And who's to say that, and might be a lot to say, but who's to say that Kevin Durant doesn't suffer that same injury if it's just he's been playing every game this series? Obviously, it's probably not a coincidence that it was right calf, right Achilles, which are very close to one another.
Yep, and interrelated with the muscle system, but
you can't really say that one led to the other. They probably did, but I'm just trying to maybe take a weight off of the shoulders of the doctors, and that it could have just been a freak injury. I don't think it was. But you can't rule anything out, really, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. And I think that, it could be completely independent. There also have been some doctors that said when that injury first happened, everybody was so concerned about the Achilles. They thought it was an Achilles injury initially, but then the news came out, the doctors evaluated it, and it was a calf strain. But you know as well as I do, the last 5 weeks have been so secretive.
Right.
It's not how he's doing, when he's going to practice, how he's feeling, how he's responding to that injury. It's been pretty much blank slate up until Sunday, where it's like, hey, it's questionable for Game 5, and then Monday's like, okay, he is playing Game 5. So, I don't know. As a player, as a coach, you'll never predict injuries. You give it your all, but they can happen at any time. It's just obviously really unfortunate and for our series and for his point in the career for it to happen that day.
One of the most unfortunate things that have come out of this, I think, is, and I'm a huge Kevin Durant fan, he's my favorite player, it's kind of sickening to know that the only way Kevin Durant got respect is because he got injured. Like, if he comes out and scores 30, Warriors win by 15, everyone still hates him. He's a snake. He made the NBA unfair. It's crazy to think that just because he got injured, people will respect him now.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, there's a few points you're saying, so I'd like to add to a few of those. One, that, like, you know, he's a snake for leaving to join what they call a super team. I think the last two finals have proven that Golden State, when they're matched against another superstar like LeBron and Kyrie, have a really tough time beating those teams without Kevin Durant. He's the finals MVP for a good reason. Golden State plays a great regular season game. They can beat playoff opponents that don't have a good defensive efficiency, defensive rating, but as soon as they get to a team that's very good defensively and has superstars to match, they have a tough time. And Curry and Thompson have kind of shied away from that competition, and he's like that leading edge. And you're right, though. I apologize to one of my friends after that injury, because I admit I was a little guilty on placing blame on him for not sticking it out, and it wasn't until that game where like, oh man, he was really hurt.
Right.
And I think my viewpoint came a lot into not knowing the information.
Right.
You know, whereas like Klay Thompson, you see him on the bench with the team the whole entire time. This whole series, you didn't really see Kevin Durant on the bench. He didn't travel with the team the first two games. He's just back there in the locker room. It's like, at least sit with your team, man. And then, like, you know, Thompson, and I should never compare someone else's injury to another, but eager to get in. That next game he's playing, you can tell he's a little bit hurt, a little bit affected, but he's still going. And it's like, is Durant doing this to preserve his free agency status? Right. Is he kind of like mentally checked out for the last 5 weeks that, hey, I'm not going to, you know, jump in here at the final end? But yeah, obviously that injury, you see that, no, he's actually all for this team. He's a super competitor with the willingness to win. And it's just like, unfortunate that this happened, but he pushed himself for the best interest of his team.
So, as you mentioned in that last point you were making, was he trying to preserve his free agency? So, free agency will be the topic of the next question.
Okay, yeah.
So, the main headline in the New York Post this morning was, Knicks lose Game 5, Kevin Durant out. And that's one of their biggest free agents. Kevin Durant, obviously a free agent after the season.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you believe that Kevin Durant will now sign with Golden State, knowing that he probably will miss all of next year, or at least most of it?
Okay, so that's a lot. I haven't been too decisive on the free agency status this year, but I've learned something with the LeBron stories last year. Mm-hmm. It's like all these little tidbits, these secret whispers of information that LeBron's leaving Cleveland, going to the Lakers. I'm like, no, that's not true. But it's a community of all intelligence gatherers, and when you get all these pieces coming at you, there's probably more truth than you think. Right. And then look what happens to LeBron. So this whole thing, me being a Golden State fan, like, please, like, why would you? You had the chance to win 3 championships, Golden State overall 4 in the last 5 years, you know, if they had won this one, and we'll still wait to see that. Why would you leave that organization? Right. You'll be a highest paid player in the NBA. You'll have that. It didn't make sense to me, but with every source coming out saying it's a done deal, Golden State has accepted he's gone, coaching staff are looking to move on without him, I'm like, it's over. He's gone after this year. So I think that his offers are definitely going to still be out there. I think when the injury happened, I did say it has increased Golden State chances to get him back. Before, if he was healthy, finish the season, I don't know, throw a percentage out there, 10% chance he comes back or something. Now that he's hurt, maybe it goes up to 30, 40. I'm just throwing these numbers out there, but just slightly higher, but then again, maybe slightly lower.
Right.
Because who's to know what Kevin Durant knows? The doctor said I'm good, I'm not going to get hurt, and now look what happens. You cost me my free agency. Like, the last thing I'm going to do is trust you, kind of like the Kawhi Leonard with the Spurs, you know? But,
yeah. So, yeah, like you're saying, there are basically 2 schools of thought for Kevin Durant coming back to the Warriors is either, wow, my teammates really rallied around me. They showed that they care about me. Bob Myers with the tears, whether you think those are fake or not. In the post-game press conference, the team really seemed shaken by my absence.
Mm-hmm.
Or 2 is this team lied to me. They said I was better than I was, and now I'm injured because of it.
Yeah, I think that when you have an organization that is run as well as Golden State, I do think they put the future into thought. And I don't know, we don't have enough variables, but I think that the ultimate decision was Kevin's. You had access to all the information that they did, and they say, look, this is what's on stake. We're down 3-1. We need you to compete, but it's ultimately up to you to play this game or not play this game. Obviously, your health comes first. And I think with superstar status, first team, All-NBA, he made the call, hey, I'm not going to let my team go down like this. I will regret not at least trying to play through this. So let me go out there, see how it feels. And I don't know if you saw the pre-warm-up tape. I mean, he was out there shooting, making buckets. That one guy threw that alley-oop. He, like, skied it. He could have dunked on a 12, 13-foot rim. How high he got. He jammed it down. Like, man, if I'm ever moving like that before a basketball game, I'm ready to go. You know? So, I mean, it's tough. It's tough, man.
And this is the final Kevin Durant-related question. Then we'll get into Game 5 and looking forward to Game 6.
Yeah.
So, when Kevin Durant went down, maybe not all the Raptors fans knew what was going on, but in the cameras you could see some of them waving and a lot of them cheering for Kevin Durant's injury.
Yeah.
So do you believe that what the Raptors did, even though it eventually turned into KD cheers, was shameful?
I think ultimately looking at it now until then, very very shameful. It's kind of classless. I mean, this is a professional athlete that's given it his all. And you never want to applaud injury. It's just something that you can't control. His whole career could be altered. Who knows? You know, that could be a career ender. You know, You don't know how recovery and rehab, he may never be the same. And so to cheer from that without thinking about the future is kind of despicable. But I'm not perfect.
Right.
And we as fans are so hyper competitive. And as a coach, you want to do anything that gives your team the best chance to win. And I think Raptors fans were very nervous. They're very scared. When he was playing, 3 for 3 from Trey, 11 points in 11 minutes, they saw that, oh, man, we may lose this finals with him. So I think that's the raw emotion initially when it happens, like, oh, yes, we're cheering because our team has a better chance to win this series now. And I didn't do this publicly. I probably wouldn't do it publicly, but I admit last year when Chris Paul had his hammy, like, the first emotion I felt was happiness and relief because I know without Chris Paul, Houston is not as good as a team, and my team has a better chance to win. So it's both ways on that one, too.
Yeah, I agree.
Not in public, I wouldn't, but in private, I'm like, yes, I feel a little happy. That's my squad.
One thing I can kind of relate it to is it's like when you were little and, like, you slap your sister and your mom's like, okay, well, you can only have ice cream if you apologize. And then the Raptors fans kind of, what I'm getting at is they told the Raptors fans to be quiet, the Raptors players did. And they were like, "Oh, okay, I'm sorry, KD." It's kind of like that.
It's like you've
similar
been like
to that, where it's like a little not genuine, really.
Yeah, and I think for some, obviously, it's like, you know, there's some fans out there. It's genuine. They weren't, applauding that he was hurt like the others were. You know, I think there's an interesting point about the dynamic of the NBA has changed since I've been watching. You know, I started watching basketball like routinely, like in the mid-90s. That's when I was about like 7, 8 years old. And like, to me, there was true rivalries with players. It's like other players hated other players.
Right.
And they wouldn't want to be their friends. They didn't care about them. And so your fans, you can really hone on to a guy like Jordan. You root for him. You root for the Bulls. You don't root for Stockton, Malone, Hornacek, because they're big rivals, or Reggie Miller and Chris Mullin. And now the NBA is so interconnected. Like, you saw who the biggest supporters of Durant were. Yeah. They were like Lowry. It was like players going to him like, no, guys, like, what are you doing? Like, Ibaka and stuff, like, stop cheering for his injuries. You know, they're more friends. And so I think they were like a big reason into getting that crowd.
One thing maybe to give the Raptors credit that they didn't mean to cheer for his injury is it was on a live ball play. Serge Ibaka did get the steal and brought it down the court. So my initial reaction, if I were a fan, is my team got a steal. We're about to get a fast break, probably a slam, some sort of highlight play. I'm going to cheer too. So I'd give them credit. They did turn it into a nice KD chant.
Yeah, and
maybe, I don't know. Since I'm a KD fan, I'm more sensitive to stuff like this. But in like retrospect, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I think if you look at character over the test of time, most people say Toronto is like a very friendly away atmosphere, you know. I've been to some professional games and you go into stadiums and they're just killing you. Like, you know, the players and the opposite fans. If you're a fan of a different team, they're just badgering you the whole time in the parking lot, going their way. So I think like Toronto's like pretty genuine and like they're nice and respectful, but yeah.
All right, so now on to what actually happened in Game 5 after the Durant injury. So the Warriors did go on to win the game and extend the series to a Game 6 in Oracle. So what to you was the biggest reason for the Warriors win? Was it Kevin Durant coming back and maybe he giving them a better start? Was it the three-point shooting? Obviously made 23s, second most ever in a finals game.
Yep.
Or was it the role players? DeMarcus Cousins had a great game, someone like that.
Yeah, so you got it.
You're going with all three?
All three, because this is all three. Here we go. Number one, if you look at the quarter breakdowns, Golden State had the biggest differential first quarter. Right. It was tied the second and third quarter, and then Toronto obviously had the big differential favoring them the fourth quarter. Who gives them that differential that first quarter?
Kevin Durant.
Kevin Durant, man. I think it was separated by how many? 6 or 8 points, I forget.
He was a +6 in the game.
He was a +6, and that's what the first quarter breakdown was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Golden State managed to go even second and third by giving it their all, playing inspired, defending their teammate, and also they're a championship caliber team without Durant, not as good, obviously, with. I'm watching that game, and when I saw how many three-pointers we made and the spread was so thin, I was like, that's not a good sign.
Right.
It is not a good sign to make all those three-pointers and the game still be in reach of the other team, because the law of averages will say you will miss them, they'll make more, and they'll be able to come back. So the three-pointers is kind of that anomaly. You can't expect it, and that's not a good sign for me for the next two games.
And another thing you can't expect from me is we saw what happened with DeMarcus Cousins. He played awful in Game 1, ramped up his minutes in Game 2, and then was unplayable basically for Games 3 and Game 4.
Yep.
Now, are we going to see the same trend? Played a lot of minutes in Game 5. Will he have a bad Game 6 and then eventually Game 7 if it goes there? So I don't know if you can count on him to have the same productivity. The three-pointers, they might be there in Oakland. The crowd will be roaring.
Yeah.
But, again, you can't count on that, and then clearly you can't count on another KD hot start because he's going to be out for the rest of the series.
I know.
So there's a lot of downers if you're a Golden State fan.
Yeah.
This was really not a great win for you. You only won by 1 point. So who do you think will win Game 6?
Vegas. Whatever Vegas says the line is good. I think Golden State right now is
it's minus 3.5.
A minus 3.5. So you have the intangibles of last game in Oakland ever. So you're right. The crowd is, man.
But the Raptors fans were loud in games.
I know,
3 and 4.
and it's just tough because I am a Golden State fan, but I think my years of being a sports fan, like Redskins, Braves, Pitt football, Pitt basketball, Golden State, I stick to my team. I'm so loyal. I finally realized to look at a series with an objective lens. And I've been the worst person ever to have this blind faith in my team. Oh, Redskins going to win the Super Bowl every single year, thinking they had a legit shot. And it wasn't until Golden State was historically bad when I watched them, until they turned it around. You see, oh no, they're competing for championships because they have 3 Hall of Famers, 4 All-Stars,
Right.
That's what you really need to compete with a championship. And I'm going to say Golden State in 6. They'll win Game 6, but it has to favor the Raptors. It's just the three-pointer thing we talked about.
Right.
There's only 2 people on the roster that can make Trey now.
Right.
Curry and Thompson. And when you take away Durant, put so much extra focus on them, they double team off that height. You're talking Iggy, Quinn Cook, guys coming off the bench, Looney maybe.
And Looney, another thing that might go to the Kevin Durant thing with the doctors maybe not being great is Kevon Looney is re-injured again.
Yeah, and he did get hurt.
And I think he's lobbying to play in Game 6, but I don't think he's going to play. He's out for potentially the rest of the series, and he was out for the rest of the series after Game 2.
I know, and you see him he can't even lift his right arm.
Right.
It's he's playing with his arm.
I give him a lot of credit. He's giving them all he's got, and he's been their most productive center consistently.
I know. His field goal percentage, and he's really refined his skills around the basket.
He's one of the only centers besides Jordan Bell, if you consider him a center, that you can switch onto a guard and feel a little confidence that he might be able to get a stop.
Yeah, because he's very athletic. He's that new age type of slender.
Right.
It's tough though. I look at the Golden State runs before Kevin Durant and shortly after they got Golden State Durant. You had some key former All-Stars and key contributors. They had Leandro Barbosa, Mo Spades, McGee, David West, that when they came in, okay, they would give you your minutes. They worked well as a second unit. And not to knock those guys, but you spend so much money in your stars.
Right.
The quality of the bench to me is subpar in experience. And you can't, when Toronto overall team average is better than Golden State overall average without Durant.
And with Durant, they could hide guys like Alfonso McKinney didn't have to play a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Guys like that, Iguodala's minutes could be down a little bit.
Yeah.
But now that he's out, you got to play McKinney a lot more. You got to play Quinn Cook a lot more, even though they don't play the same position. But Kevin Durant takes minutes away from basically everybody who's not a starter because he's just that good. He can play any position.
He'll give you your 35, 40 minutes a game,
right.
And then your guys come in fresh. And because the Game 2 when they won 2, Quinn Cook I think made 3 for 3 from Trey. That's an anomaly. That's not expected to me. And And yeah, I think Iguodala, Livingston will be the keys. You know, and Draymond. Draymond was very aggressive in the Portland series, but then Portland, I don't know off the top of my head, 18th, 19th best defensive rating as a team. They're fine with those teams.
Yeah.
But Toronto's the best team they faced defensive rating in the entire playoffs. I think they're 5th best or 4th in the NBA regular season. So Draymond is not getting those easy looks or baskets that he had in the others.
The most important thing for me, if the Warriors are going to win and even win the series maybe, is they have to play better defense. And that's why they won in Game 5, or not Game 5, Game 6.
Yeah.
Nope, Game 5. I was right the first time.
Yep.
Draymond Green got the late block on Kyle Lowry to seal the game. And then, other than that, their team defense was just great in the final quarter and basically throughout the whole game, limiting Toronto to less points, which is an anomaly for this series as Toronto's been outscoring them all but 2 games.
Yep.
So if they can continue to play that kind of defense, and at home you have to be confident that they can continue it. Jeez, it's hot in here. We got a new setup today, but...
Are you hot? I feel great. I'm like freezing.
There are a bunch of lights in here.
It feels good.
Sorry, I was starting to lose my train of thought. But might be off topic, but for Game 6, if the Warriors don't wear the retro We Believe jerseys, then they lost in my book already. They should wear those, I think. Definitely last game in Oracle, no matter what happens, win or loss.
What about the Chinese New Year black jersey? I think they're undefeated in those ones. I'm just making up stats to support an argument. I have no idea what the record is.
Show homage to the We Believe team.
Yeah.
Back in 2008.
Yeah, no, that's awesome with against Dallas Mavericks and Dirk. Yeah, that was a good team. Yeah, I think 6, like I said, those key reserves need to step up. The defensive thing is tough. Like, I thought we had a really good defensive identity when Bogut was a lot younger, when Iggy was younger, when you had like those key reserves that came in and just gave you that length, and I don't know.
And Kevin Durant contributes to their defense a lot. In the beginning of Game 5, he had a block and a steal.
Oh, he's one of, and I think that's probably the biggest transformation of his game when he left OKC, is he took it upon his shoulders to become, he was already a good defender, become one of the league's best defenders, and so many other players and commentators says he's so good offensively, they overlook his defensive ability, but man, you're 7 foot, with that length and that athleticism, you can alter shots, you can block shots, get rebounds.
Their depth lineup is still the best lineup in basketball, I think, with Iguodala, Draymond, KD, Stephen Clay. Especially against Toronto, because all series, especially Game 1, Draymond's too small, Iguodala's too small for Pascal Siakam. Kevin Durant's 7 foot,
and he's
long wingspan.
Quick, don't tell me what it could have been.
And then you got
Marcus Gasol's a mismatch too, because he's just so big and strong, and Draymond.
But you're willing to. If I'm the Warriors, I'm willing to sacrifice if Kevin Durant is playing. I'm sacrificing Marcus Gasol as long as the other guys don't get their buckets. I'd rather have Marcus Gasol score on Draymond Green, which is still going to be a tough matchup because Draymond Green is a bulldog down low. So I think even Marcus Gasol being a massive matchup. Or were you talking offense or defense? Because I might be talking the wrong thing.
Well, I was talking about like defensively. It's tough for them to stop Marcus Gasol because he's just 7 feet and he weighs a lot. Oh, my bad. Sorry. And he weighs a lot, and I just know, like, as a basketball player too, like, I was great against people shorter than me and that weighed less than me because I'm very athletic and long. As soon as you had somebody that had a lot of weight behind them, I played this guy, last year, he's probably outweighed me by 60 pounds. His name was Madden, and he would just come to the post, and he would just straight body me. I would just fly like a little green bean. I don't know. So it's just... I see that as a mismatch, but then again, offensively, that's when Draymond should shine.
Right.
You're quicker, you're faster. Like, you should get around Gasol and go, but they play good team defense. They build their walls very well. That those options aren't available.
And I think the best matchup for the Warriors, I think Klay Thompson should play on Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah,
and I think Iguodala should start on Kyle Lowry. And that's what we saw with the depth lineup, and that works pretty well. I think Klay Thompson's the best matchup for Kawhi Leonard. Easily.
He does really well, and then in big moments like the end of Game 5, they had that nice little double team, and then you force somebody else to beat you. And Draymond, what a great switch to come over to get a finger on that Lowry shot.
Game 2, the other game the Warriors won, their great defensive strategy was like what I just mentioned, and then Draymond Green was just kind of the roamer. Because besides Kawhi and then Pascal and Kyle Lowry, the Raptors don't have a whole lot of offensive weapons.
Yeah.
So if you got Draymond Green to just go and double whoever has the ball, especially if it's like one of the 3 players I mentioned, then you can easily play great defense and probably win. in Game 2, Kawhi Leonard fell out of bounds like 3 times just because Draymond came over for the double team.
Yeah.
If they can replicate that same defensive intensity in Game 6 and play that same defensive scheme, and Coach Kerr, because of his great roster, hasn't gotten a whole lot of credit for his good coaching and the way he's able to make spot decisions, but I think he will replicate that defense, and I think the Warriors will win.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm definitely hoping for it. I'm going to watch that game. I'm excited. Just one last point to your thing is when you have that great defense, the Warriors' offense is way different. When they get the rebound and they run, that's when Draymond can attack the basket or he can kick it out for those three-pointers that we need.
The Warriors are one of those teams, I don't know if you play 2K, but when it's takeover and everybody gets hot, that's kind of how they are. If Steph hits one, then Clay hits one, then it's like Draymond, I'm going to shoot one, and then it goes into Iguodala.
Yep.
It spreads out to everyone, and that always starts on the transition for the most part, because with how Kyle Lowry and Danny Green, Fred VanVleet, how they've all been just face guarding Curry, making it difficult. If he can get easy shots in transition to start the game, then they can't really run the box and run against them because you need more attention on him. Opens up other shooters, and then it all starts with the defense, like you said.
No, absolutely. So that's going to be the key. And one thing I know about the squad is that when the lights are bright, they come and they match that intensity and they shine. So I'm not going to have any doubt for Game 5 if they're not going to give it their all that game. It's just a matter of like creating those shots and getting those buckets. So, and
we might not be even be talking about a Game 6 if Coach Nick Nurse for the Toronto Raptors hadn't made a shaky decision at the end of Game 5. With 3:05 left, Toronto was on fire. Kawhi Leonard was on a 10-0 personal run. He called not just one timeout, but timeouts back-to-back to give Toronto a big rest. Had one at the end of the game on the bad play where Kyle Lowry ended up in the corner getting blocked by Draymond Green. So what was the bigger blunder to you? The double timeouts when Toronto was on their great run, or the lack of a timeout in the final play?
The double timeouts, I feel like that's hindsight 2020.
Right.
If the double timeouts give Kawhi a little bit more rest, he had a lot of minutes than the other guys, and they come back and win that game, oh man, Nick Nurse, you're a genius. Like, you're game managing perfectly. But because it didn't go in that favor and gave a chance for Golden State to regroup, it looks like a blunder. So I wouldn't call that a blunder. The second one, though, you're talking about the lack of a timeout.
Right.
When Kawhi gets it, he's double teamed, he passes it to Gasol. Gasol kicks it out to Lowry.
Right.
Do you think he should have had a timeout there?
I think he should have, because there's no rule that if you're in a live play, you can't call a timeout. That's one of the best times to use it. And it wasn't like there was not much time left. When Kyle Lowry caught the ball, there was still like 2 or 1 seconds left. I can't really remember, but you can still call a timeout there as long as you have more than 0.5 seconds. You can get any shot off you really need, obviously, unless it's off the dribble. So I don't see why he didn't call a timeout at all, especially when he saw that when Kawhi got doubled, there was still a solid amount of time on the clock. That would have been the time I called the timeout and maybe ran a play. And the Warriors, their defense was set up even at the beginning of that play. They didn't try to call a timeout to advance it over half court, or when Kawhi started to get the double. So I think that was, maybe he didn't know he had a timeout. I can't be sure, but I think that was a bigger blunder.
Yeah, and this is something that, from this conversation that I never really thought of. I know that the coaches often instruct players to call the timeout, but is it on them to actually do it?
Right.
Because I noticed, Curry, he'll bring it up half court, so they'll have the ball to start on that side, but then, then one of the players is the one to call the timeout. So should it have been Kawhi to call it when he had that ball on the double team?
Right.
I'm not sure. That's something I would need to look into.
Well, if Kawhi called timeout, no one would hear me. Yeah. Timeout.
Timeout. And then he'd laugh afterwards. Sorry. I don't want to be like a Toronto Raptors fan and poke fun at other players that are just doing their job.
Don't worry, that was a polite way to make fun of them.
Yeah, that was funny. So I thought that was a good shot. You don't want to disrupt the flow. They've been doing this the entire season. Kawhi gets it, double team happens, gives it to Gasol. I thought Gasol maybe shooting it would have been an option, gives it to Lowry. And Lowry was open. The double team forced Lowry to be open. Great basketball decision. It's Draymond closing him out to get his finger on there that altered the shot. But I'm fine as a coach with that shot.
Right, but in that position, when Lowry caught it, it was not much time left, so Draymond Green could go full send, sprint as hard as he could, because there was no opportunity for Lowry to slip around him and get a mid-range shot.
Shoot, right? Yeah.
So they put him in a tough position, and I don't know, there was no need to go for the buzzer beater. If they got a shot with 4 seconds left, then there's more pressure on the Golden State Warriors to come down and get a basket, and on the ropes on enemy territory. That would be a lot harder than the Raptors trying to get a buzzer beater.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole thing is, too, you lost by 1.
Right.
why is the three-pointer in play?
Right.
You know, like you only need a high percent chance 2-point bucket, and maybe Golden State was kind of like pulling back to defend that. But that's the thing I thought, like, how come one of those guys didn't drive and like force a foul or get a 2-point bucket? But all in all, if Lowry makes a three, awesome. Right. If they win the game, Nick Nurse, awesome decision. Right. So it's just really
one thing though about the Nick Nurse timeout is you mentioned how maybe the Raptors players were a bit gassed. I would argue that probably Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, who have been credited for doing all of the work for the Warriors, especially recently, that probably gave them fresh legs because they outscored them 9-2 in the final 3:05 of the game after the timeout.
Yeah.
All 9 of those baskets, if I remember correctly, 2 Klay Thompson threes, 1 by Steph Curry. So that helped them out just as much as it hurt the Raptors because that's just a free timeout for the Warriors.
Yeah, no, you're right. And, I mean, you know, I imagine Nick Nurse calls it to give his guys rest, but say, hey, look, this is our objectives. This is our plan for the last 3 minutes. This is what we need to do. So you're hoping that time it will benefit them that way. But you're right. Even the Game 4, like, poor Curry and Thompson, like, they run miles a game. And it's the first time I looked at a series, like, those guys are tired. The way they were coming back defensively. I'll be honest with you, when Toronto made that big run, I turned off the TV. And I just started saying some... you know, poor choice of words just because it just all came down to collapse. KD was hurt. I feel like Golden State was up, and then when they made that push, I was like, there's no way. But typically, like, I'll turn off the TV, and then within a minute, I'll check back in just as some, like, hope that, hey, they did something. That's when I saw that Klay Thompson and Curry made those threes, like, oh, my God, we're back. We have a shot, you know. So I was pumped, but it was just... it took the momentum out of me. 2 times I turned off the TV was the Durant injury as soon as it happened. And then that time Toronto made that run in the fourth quarter where they overtook that lead and they pushed it. I'm like, that's me being an emotional fan. Some people say being a fake fan. It's just I get so wrapped up in it when it happens. I'm like, oh, this sucks so bad.
All right. So we both have picked the Warriors to win Game 6. What's your X factor for the Warriors then if that is going to happen?
Okay, I think the X factor is, like you said, defense, great defense to hold them to a low field goal percentage to work their offense in transition.
Right. I think it will be Draymond Green because one thing that not a lot of people have mentioned, if this does go to Game 7, Draymond Green's going to be out for that if he gets another technical foul in Game 6. He's to 6 already.
A lot of people didn't mention that. Yeah.
So if he can keep his composure. Because that's one thing that happens a lot that really changes the game is a technical foul, then they get a free throw when they have high percentage free throw shooters, which everybody has in the finals at this point.
Yep.
And then a free offensive possession is basically a free 3 to 4 points. So you can't have plays like that. You got to keep your composure if you're Draymond Green. And then obviously he's a very talented basketball player. Can he hit threes when he's open? Can he force the defense to not play box on one on Curry because someone needs to pay attention to him too?
Absolutely, yep.
And I'm not worried. Klay Thompson's going to hit threes. He's going to play great defense. But Draymond Green, like I said, can he keep a level head? Can he make good offensive plays? Can he limit turnovers? That's another big X factor. Golden State, when they're at their best, they're in transition, they're shooting threes, they're playing great defense. When they're at their worst, it's I'm going to sprint the ball up the court and then just pass it, and that'll probably be a turnover. Yeah. So can they just keep their composure? Not just Draymond, but really the whole team.
Yeah. No, and can I just add one thing, that Draymond thing? There's no player I'm worried about less than Draymond Green in a win or go home game. I mean, even when David Lee was hurt, their very first series, David Lee was hurt. Draymond comes in and he scores, I think, like 28, 30 points as a rookie or a sophomore or whatever. And I was like, man, that's going to be the future of our team. That's going to be like the power forward, the center of our team. He just always shows up big. With the three-pointers, his percentage isn't that great. In big games, he makes his three.
Right. Draymond Green, like, my nickname for him is he's one of those yes guys. Like, he catches the ball and you're like, no. He shoots, no. Yes, I knew you were going to make it. Like,
how about every time he shoots or Iggy, I'm just like, no. Yeah. That's a terrible offensive play.
And the time I did that, the most insane I've ever gotten with one of those yes moments was when Iguodala caught the ball at Game 2. I was like, oh, God.
Oh, I know. It's like, why? Anybody besides him. It's like a 3-on-2 or something. Right. Like, drive and then try to, like, float it or
And did you hear what Max Kellerman said? He said if, like, the Earth were at, like, if they missed it, then all the Earth would die. You got Steph Curry or Iguodala to make a shot to win it. He said, I would choose Iguodala. Put the fate of our planet in Iguodala's hands for a three-pointer rather than Curry. Yeah.
Oh. I mean, I think Curry's made some huge shots in his career, you know it.
And so, back to Game 6. We're very high on the Warriors' chances, but if the Raptors do win it, the obvious choice is Kawhi Leonard for Finals MVP. But if you
Absolutely.
if on the ballot they just crossed out Kawhi Leonard and said anybody but him, who would be your sleeper for Finals MVP?
Oh, and it has to be someone from Toronto.
Assuming
correct?
They would win it, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Because they're.
And then I'll reverse the question after that.
Okay. Siakam.
Siakam.
I think Siakam. He's a player that has his length, he has his energy, he exposes, like you said, Iggy and Dre for not being big enough, and he's just always there. He's a difference maker. I'm kind of battling between Siakam and Lowry, but I would go ahead and say Siakam. I thought game 1 he was like outstanding. They kind of limited his points in a few of those games, but every time I'm watching, he's just there. He's just contributing, defensively especially and on offense. So
I'm going to go with someone that even if you've watched every game of the finals, you probably hear his name and still go, who is that? And that is Fred VanVleet.
Yeah, I would see it, yeah.
He's been playing great defense on Curry.
I know.
He's a spark plug. He makes shots. He's just a spark plug, really. And Nick Nurse has been smart and started him for the second halves of games.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like I said, great job on Curry.
Yeah, outstanding. He reminds me of Tyronn Lue versus Allen Iverson,
And if they do win in Game 6 or Game 7, it'll probably be a game where Steph Curry is 12 for 30, 2 for 10 from 3, which will probably be a lot on Fred VanVleet's shoulders. But obviously, I'm kind of having to go and find different players because I'm just so, I'm in the mindset that it's definitely going to be Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he is the top 3 best players in the world, and in the games like that where you really put all your effort defensively, he's still able to score and to help his team defensively. It's just, it's a no-brainer there.
Yeah, and then, so this will be our final question before we go off. So I said I'd reverse it. Golden State's final MVP, assuming they win it.
Curry.
Okay, cross out Curry.
Oh, cross out Curry. Okay.
Sorry,
yeah, because I just say that 47-point game, and he's the only one so far, knock on wood, that's been in all games. Thompson he is so big, man.
Right.
It's like when he came back from that injury with his hamstring, it's like he has no fear whatsoever. And like when they were down 3-1 to OKC to end up winning and facing Cleveland in the finals. He
tends to have big game 6s.
Big game 6s, and he just makes buckets. He's like offensively more efficient in these tough games, and not enough credit to his defense.
Right.
Man, I even started to argue that. I know this is maybe the exception and not the rule with this argument, but I'm tending to think as their careers go on, Klay is more valuable than Steph. And in the beginning part, absolutely, it's Steph's team. He's making all those 3-pointers. He's such a catalyst on offense for everybody.
Right.
But Thompson is so essential defensively, and his offensive game is growing, where he can score his 25, 30 points.
Right.
So.
Right. I'd agree with you that it's Klay Thompson. And then one thing for the people that vote, like Klay Thompson, he's hard to root against. He's just like Kawhi Leonard. He's one of the he's unintentionally funny. He's the funniest guy in the league. I think he's like the chillest guy in the league.
Yep, absolutely.
He's my second favorite player behind Kevin Durant.
Yeah, and just as a coach, I love players that are team first. I'm second, and I just see that in his personality. Everything he does, everything he says is always like, I'm in it to win championships. I want the best for the people around me, and if they do well, that's fine. That doesn't make me feel any worse about myself.
Right.
I like that.
All right. So, like I mentioned, we're in a new setup. So, if there's an extra 10 minutes onto this video, it's because I couldn't figure out how to turn off the camera. Yeah. So I'm gonna try and do that now. Cause you can do the outro.
Yeah. What's my outro?
I don't know. Whatever you want to say.
Hey, thank you for having me. Hopefully, I will be on here a few more times. Awesome basketball show, and we'll see what happens for Game 6.